Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something I think is absolutely fascinating, the world of ghost stories and what science can tell us about why we believe in them. We're going to explore why these spooky tales have such a powerful grip on our imaginations, and, more importantly, how we can build a kind of mental toolkit to help us tell fact from fiction.
I mean, think about it. You find these stories everywhere, in every culture on Earth. And they're not just about a quick scare. They tap into something way deeper, you know? They help us wrestle with big ideas like mortality, connect with the past, and just try to make sense of things we can't explain.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? When an experience feels so personal, so completely real to you, how do you even begin to separate what you feel is true from what you can, actually prove? That's the challenge we're going to get into today. So first things first, to really get a handle on why we believe what we do, we've got to appreciate just how powerful these stories are. And trust me, they've been around for a long, long time. From stories written on ancient Egyptian scrolls to the tales we tell around a campfire today, these narratives have always done some serious heavy lifting for us. Just look at this list. They're teaching us values, they're explaining the unexplainable, connecting us to our ancestors, they even build a sense of community around a shared mystery. It's so much more than just going boo in the dark.
Okay, so let's dive into the how. How do we build a framework to really look at these powerful beliefs? Well, this is where we turn to science. And I don't mean science as a big book of facts, but science as a process, a toolkit for asking better questions.
At its heart, science is really just a disciplined way of asking questions. It's all about evidence that can be observed and tested. But here's the key part. It's a public, dynamic process that's always correcting itself. The whole system is designed to try and minimize our own personal biases.
And then, on the flip side, you've got pseudoscience. Now this is tricky, because it often uses very sciencey language and looks like real research, but it just doesn't follow the same tough rules for testing and verification. You could say it looks the part, but it doesn't do the real work.
What's so interesting about this slide is the difference in attitude it shows. Seriously, look at the two columns. Under science, everything is about change, questioning, welcoming criticism, and building on what we already know. And then you look at pseudoscience. It's rigid, it's hostile to critics, it's pretty much stagnant. That difference in mindset is absolutely everything.
The philosopher Mario Bunge put it in a really great way. He said you have research fields and belief fields. And the main difference boils down to this. How do they handle evidence? Is it objective, something anybody can check for themselves? Or is it personal and subjective, based on a gut feeling or an experience only one person had?
All right, so now that we've got our toolkit, let's actually put it to work. We're going to take this scientific framework and apply it directly to some paranormal claims and just see what happens.
So, next time you hear a really extraordinary claim, here are a few red flags to listen for. A huge one is if the evidence is almost entirely personal stories, anecdotes. Another big one? When the spooky stuff seems to vanish the moment someone tries to test it under controlled scientific conditions.
Now take a look at this. This is a recent description of how you might feel a spirit's presence. A light touch, flickering lights, a familiar smell. Now think about the toolkit we just built. Do you see how this lines up with what we were just talking about? It's all about personal, subjective experience.
And this, of course, brings us to maybe the most famous ghost story of all time, the Amityville Horror. It is a terrifying story for sure, but it's also a perfect example of a powerful narrative that rests almost completely on the personal testimony of one family. And that's why people are still debating it decades later.
And this is just a brilliant example of why objective methods are so crucial. Because it's not just everyday people who can get fooled, even brilliant, trained scientists can trick themselves. The story of N-rays shows that without those rigorous, double-checked controls, our own minds can make us see exactly what we want to see.
Okay, so if a lot of these claims don't really hold up when you look at them closely, why are they so powerful? Why are they so incredibly compelling to us? Well, this gets us into the psychology of it all. What deep human need are these beliefs filling? It turns out, these kinds of beliefs often tap directly into our deepest hopes and fears. They promise simple solutions to life's hardest problems, they tell us we can predict the future, that we have no limits, and, maybe most powerfully, they promise us that death isn't really the end. This isn't some new modern problem. The ancient Greek statesman Demosthenes absolutely nailed this more than 2,000 years ago. This temptation to believe what we wish was true, well, it seems to be a fundamental part of being human.
So, where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway from all of this? I think it really comes down to one simple thing. the value of asking good questions.
I know the word skepticism can sometimes sound negative, right? Like you're just being cynical. But real skepticism isn't about that at all. It's really about being curious. It's the simple act of pausing and saying, hang on, how do we know that's true? Before you jump to a conclusion.
And this right here might be the most important point of all. A true skeptic is not closed-minded. Actually, it's the complete opposite. It's about being fundamentally open to being wrong. A skeptic is always willing to change their mind if you show them better evidence. It's the opposite of dogma.
And so that leaves us with one last question to chew on. It's one thing to say, keep an open mind. But as we've seen, it's also incredibly easy to fool ourselves. So the real challenge for all of us is finding that sweet spot. How do we stay open to wonder and new ideas, while also making sure we're thinking critically about the world? Something to think about.